This is the best of all possible worlds. That's the way that Voltaire rendered it in Candide. This is the best of all possible worlds. And then there were philosophers like Leibniz, if I'm not mistaken, who also held that. They probably got it from us because we were talking like this for over 1,000 years before they started talking that way. But we say, Laysa fil imkan, there is not in the realm of possibility better than what was, than what has been. Meaning that even though the world is filled with horrors and tribulations and terrors and oppression and abuse, and the fall of civilizations and the rise of civilizations, God willed this to be based on His infinite knowledge of all possibilities. Okay, so it's very important for us to be patient. It is very important for us to accept that. If you knew the horror of what happened in this peninsula with the fall of Muslim Spain and Portugal, in which there were millions and millions of Muslims who were the majority populations in 2/3 of the peninsula, and who were very similar in their culture and everything else to the Syrians or the Lebanese or the Jordanians or the Palestinians, because those were the main areas where Muslim Portugal and Spain came from. If you knew what happened to them, how their families were enslaved, how their families were destroyed, how they were killed, how their women were treated, how the Inquisition dealt with them after that. This is one of the darkest stories in all humanity. And if you want to talk about the fascist state and Nazi Germany, or you want to talk about the KGB and Stalinist Russia, you've got to link it to the Spanish Inquisition and the Portuguese Inquisition, because they did it big time. They did it big time. And they destroyed everything that was here. And what was here was beautiful beyond words. And that's not just romanticism. That's based on knowledge of what was here. Okay? So is that good? Does that make you happy? But again, God has wisdom in that. This is a test which is one of the greatest tests that human beings were ever tested with, and that believing communities were ever tested with. Look what happened to the children of Israel. Look what happened to the Christians. Look what happened to the Christians. The Christians who truly followed Jesus were fed to the lions. They were cut in two by saws. Sometimes their heads were cut down from the top, because they said, I believe in one God and I will not prostrate to the statue of the emperor. They say, okay, well, we'll cut your head in two. We'll slice you in two. See, will you repent? No, I won't. And they would tell them, today you go to the lions, and they would say, Ashukru lillah. And Tunisia has beautiful stories of that. In all these lands, Egypt, Tunisia, Syria, they were deeply steeped in the religion of Jesus Christ. And they worshiped God as Jesus worshiped God. They didn't worship Jesus. Okay, and these people were treated that way. Everything was destroyed. The books were all destroyed because Jesus came to prepare the way for the greatest of all prophets, our prophets. That was God's wisdom in that. Okay, so also in the fall of Muslim Portugal and Spain, there is great pain and great suffering and great oppression. Okay, but there's also great wisdom. Look at the Crusades. Look at what's happening in Palestine. Since in the 20th century, that's an ugly story. Look at the genocide taking place in Syria today. Blatant genocide. Okay, but still, laysa fil imkani khayru mimma kan. There is not in the realm of possibility anything better than what has been, because God has wisdom in this. So you believe in God and you be patient. And that's why when the Muslims knew that everything here will fall, after they lost Toledo, they knew that it will not strategically be possible to hold on to Portugal and Spain unless we can retake Toledo. And they weren't able to do that. And the Christians are certainly not going to let them do that. Okay? The Muslims here had to have Toledo, just like the Ottoman Empire had to have a particular city to hold Hungary. Do you know what that city was? Vienna. Vienna. The Ottomans only wanted to conquer Vienna so that they could hold Hungary, because they had Hungary. Hungary was 30% Muslim under the Ottomans. Bulgaria, 80% Muslim. Greece, 50% Muslim. What happened to those people? What happened to those people? Ask them in their graves. What happened to those people? But, you know, history is the big story, the painful story. But God has in that great wisdom. You've got to be tested. And this ummah has been tested like no other ummah before it. And we're still here. They were totally unsuccessful. And this religion, inshallah, is coming back to life. And it will come back to life. And this is something that the Muslims of Portugal and Spain believe very deeply, that Islam will come back here because it belongs here. This peninsula welcomed Islam. Islam came here very swiftly. The conquest was a single battle that lasted for 8 days. The Muslims versus the Visigoths, who ruled Spain and Portugal. Took 8 days. And then the Muslims defeated the Visigoths, and then the whole rest of Spain and Portugal, over a period of 2 years, just negotiates peace treaties. No more battles. That's amazing. The Crusades, when they come from the north, they are not welcomed in this land at all. They're hated. And they bring a whole new culture that we're going to make these people Europeans again. We will change their clothes. All the Christians and Jews and Muslims here, they dressed like Arabs. They ate like Arabs. They spoke Arabic. And we're going to change that. You'll speak Latin. You'll speak your Latin, Romance dialects, everything. And the church will do that. It will change the culture. It will change the identity. It will change the names. And this was very unwelcomed to Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And it took them 800 years. Battle after battle, and they had to develop a culture of war and genocide to do that, the Hidalgo culture. Okay, but again, when the Muslims saw that they were going to fall, they said, La Ghaliba ILLAllah. There is no conqueror but God. You conquer me today, God conquered me, and I'm content. And tomorrow we will conquer you, because Islam will come back. So this is very important. This is why when we look at evil in the world, we respond to it in terms of Sharia, which means help the oppressed. Respond to the call. Do jihad. Jihad is one of the greatest obligations of all, and it is the ethical pinnacle of Islam. Okay? It's a moral principle. Okay? But, we accept in haqiqah, in our hearts, the wisdom of what happened. And, I don't know much about you, but I do know a lot about our community and people like you. And I know that if we were to talk with you, that probably every one of you has got a horror story to tell. And some of you don't, but a lot do. And it's very important, that we know that whatever has happened to us, it was God's wisdom. And we will grow beyond it. We will not be thwarted by it. We will not be bent and ruined by it. And this ummah has really been through hell, and still is going through hell. Because but it will come, it is coming to life, and inshallah it will come to life. So we'll always select out infinite possibilities. We talked about the contingency of the world. Right? We talked about the fact that this world is all temporal. Right? All has a beginning. It's all bound in time, all bound in space. Therefore, everything in it shouts takbir and points to God. The proof of God is the world. Open your eyes.